Welcome to Seasonal Synergies Eclipse Season Survival Guide. I am here with Megan McGrath. She is an artist, an astrologer, a friend of mine, and we are super excited to share some eclipse season tips and tricks. Can I call it tips and tricks?
I'd say so. I think survival guide is extremely appropriate for this time right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can dive into that. Tell us what are eclipses? How about, can we start with that? Like, what's an
Yeah.
eclipse? Yeah, the only thing
I
I
think,
know about eclipse
hmm,
is like it's not good to manifest during an eclipse. So,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
So the energy is just more frenetic, right?
Hmm.
It's like plugging a fork into an electrical circuit. Like it's just
Hmm.
too much energy right now. It's not stable or reliable. So that's why they say it's not good to manifest typically.
Hmm.
That being said, as we'll get into, you're more powerful than anything that's happening in the stars. You have agency over your life. You have free will. So we'll get into that.
Yes.
But to dive into the history a bit, so eclipses are ancient, 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 ancient. Before there was language, there was eclipses. Before there
Hmm.
was humans, there was eclipses, right? And they were the first thing that was noticed in the night sky because they're so obvious, right? In the middle of the day, the sky would go completely dark, and then at night, the moon would turn blood red. So it was the first signification of, celestial events that we were able to say, wow, something's happening in the sky. And they're actually super amazing, just like astronomically and mathematically, because even NASA calls them a cosmic coincidence because the
Hmm.
sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, and it's also 400 times further away. Exactly. Like the moon's 400 times farther away from us. So it makes this like perfect eclipse, right? Like
Hmm.
perfect. The moon passes in front of the sun, and it's just this thin ray of light overshadowing. And it's just a crazy coincidence that that even happens. The chances of that are insane. Like, from the geocentric perspective, meaning from Earth, right?
Yeah.
And so because they were the first astronomical phenomenon that you could witness, people started to develop astrology around it because
Hmm.
it was the first time when you could see something happening and look around you and see a correlation. So they're associated with the rising and falling of kings and emperors.
Oh,
In
interesting.
ancient times, yeah, in ancient
Yeah.
times, they used to hide the king or actually like
Hmm.
replace the king temporarily in order just so that nothing bad would happen to him. Um, and so they were actually these moments where people feared them. They were seen as bad omens, right?
Hmm. Yeah, like
And
days of darkness.
yeah, exactly. Because all
Yeah.
of a sudden the light is inaccessible anymore, right? And that's
Yeah.
a little bit creepy. So,
Especially if you didn't have the science or maybe even early on the language to understand what was going on and suddenly it was just
exactly.
dark and things we know in our intuition, like even looking at it from like a survival perspective, like what if the sun doesn't come back? How do we grow food? How do we eat? How do we see?
Yes, exactly. And so in the modern version of that, we're obviously much more autonomous as people. Like we're
We have
not,
lights.
yeah, we have lights. We're not living in the dark ages. We don't have kings and queens. Well, some of us do. I'll get into that
Yeah.
later. But the modern meaning is that basically they're just these points of heightened accumulation, culmination, and they're basically just supercharged new moons and full moons. So they correspond in modern astrology with the south node and the north node of the moon, which is
Mm.
points of the moon. And that represents like a holding on and a letting go, an increase and a decrease. They're axes, right? They're polarities, major beginnings, major endings.
So it always I was wondering that recently. Does it always happen with the new and full moon, not at other times of the
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So they're associated with the new moon and full moon only, but only because when they line up, because the nodes of the moon are points on the moon. And so eclipses happen because they don't happen every month, right? They happen when the north node and the south node line up perfectly with the
Mm.
sun and the moon. So basically what it is in a nutshell. Yeah, but basically the concept is that eclipses propel us towards bold initiations and shedding outdated patterns. And typically the effects of eclipses, they take like a year and a half to play out, like 18 months, because that's a transit of how long it takes for a North Node transit to go through. Like that's how long a sign it stays in a sign. But those moments, the peak moments, like the things that like the initiatory action happens on the eclipses, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a little backgrounds on it.
Dang.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to just talk about was this is a fun little tidbit fact is this astrologer, his name's Chris Brennan, who's an amazing astrologer and podcaster. He has a great podcast called The Astrology Podcast, and he's done amazing work. But basically, he's come up with a rule and has done his research to find that people who are born during eclipses have really important things happen during eclipses. So, the one example for the last one that happened in October was Matthew Perry. Like he was born on an eclipse and he passed away on the day of an eclipse, which is,
That gives
it
me
doesn't always have to
chills.
be,
Yeah.
I know it always doesn't have to be that ominous. Like it doesn't have to be a
Yeah.
bad thing. But
But just
another
like,
fun,
yeah,
yeah,
big life impacting.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so it's also interesting because like as I was saying, kings and queens, earlier, like emperors rising and falling is also the royal family, since I'm in London, I know about it right now. But all their charts are littered with eclipses. There's so many throughout history, and even like Prince William and Princess Kate Middleton, they're both born not the day before, not the day after, the exact same day as eclipses. It's actually
Wow.
insane when you look at like the data of everything.
And the
So
odds of that and the coincidence that
exactly.
again, then they found each other and married and like to have both of them.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
insane. It's there's
Yeah.
only four a year, right? So the fact
Yeah.
that happened, which is really insane. And so I don't know if you're up to date in UK news, you're probably not, but Kate Middleton was just diagnosed with cancer yesterday, and it's 2 days away from an eclipse. So actually, yeah, 2 days. So it's pretty insane. Just as like a timing technique. And if you want to know if you're born on an eclipse, you can do this by Googling AstroSeek 1991 or whatever year you're born, and it will tell you the days of the eclipses in your birth year, and you can just tell if you're born within a week of an eclipse, it's like pertinent to you.
Okay. So yeah, the
Yeah.
week, is it a week on either end of it or just a week with like the eclipse being at day 3 or 4?
Yeah, I would say like a week
Week
on either
leading up? Okay.
side. Yeah. Like there's like a good solid like yeah, 3-4 weeks that are throughout the year on either side, so 2 months of the year. But
That would have that effect.
yeah, I know,
Very cool.
isn't it
I want to look
crazy?
up, I actually haven't, I've dove so deeply into charts and my own, but I don't know actually if I was born around an eclipse.
What year were you again?
1987.
1987 eclipses. AstroSeek.
I like we're doing this live. If you're listening, you can
No.
go to AstroSeek now and find out.
May, you're born in May, right?
Yeah.
May. No, it was April 14th
Okay,
in
that's good.
1987.
I feel like
But
I have enough in my chart. That's
yeah, you're good. You've
lots
been
of eighth
served.
house placements, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think I have enough.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The eighth house is strong with this one.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, to have that effect. And like, can I ask you, and I guess we're going to dive more into that today too, but like, what is it about the eclipse that really like would have such a profound effect on someone? Or is it just like a good marker? Again, like kind of like, oh, this is
This is the
information.
thing that because then you have to ask the question why astrology works, and
Yeah.
nobody can answer that, right? That's why it's has not been given its like scientific stamp. It doesn't have an explanation, but I don't know what it is. I think that transits are very real, and I think that when when we're born, we're like stamped with a time, you know, like we are an encapsulation of all that was happening around us. And that's true in the way that we're raised, but also I think just we are our environment,
Yeah.
right?
Even
And so
energetically, all of it.
energetically,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that just speaks to the power of transits, like of astrological transits and understanding transits. And um, yeah, like for example, my boyfriend, my partner Jay, he was born the day before an eclipse. And we
Mhm.
met that same eclipse 37 years later, like the same eclipse he was born on at the same degree. It's like
Wow.
cosmic, you know, just
Yeah.
like, yeah. And I told him that and he's was freaked out, but he's freaked out about a lot of things I say. But anyways,
I love that. Yeah, I feel the
yeah.
same way as well too, that like, it's nice to have a map and some guidance. Like part of me
Hmm.
knows that we wouldn't have just been born here and like thrown to the wolves. We have tools, we
Totally.
have maps, we have supports. Um, Very cool.
Yeah, and you're not just like a dot floating through space with like
Yeah.
no context of space or time. There's meaning in this, like in you, right? And I think astrology is a tool for understanding that like blueprint that's within you
Yeah.
and around you, you
Yeah,
know?
I'll add that around as well. Like it's us and
Yeah.
then how we interact with the world
Yeah.
around us, with our community, with the world at large, which
Hmm.
we are all a part of.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Once you learn the language of it, it's just like it gives you like another lens of seeing the world. But yeah, did you want to talk about the meanings of these eclipses?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think about like the Libra Aries axis? Like, because it's happening in both Libra and Aries. Did you have any thoughts?
Oh, on this current, oh, I thought you were going to chat about it.
Oh, we did. I just wanted to ask you.
We're here for your info,
Oh, okay. All right. All
your
right. All right. All
knowledge.
right. All right. All right.
I do think
Um,
the one thing I'll add, like I was actually at an event last night and we had a ritual for this new astrological new year. And I
mhm.
don't know again if it always this eclipse happens around the new year, but it is really powerful that like it's in this time. That's like it's an
Yeah,
eclipse and we're also starting our astrological new year. So it's like, and it's Aries,
totally.
so it can be very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
The eclipses shift seasons depending on what
Hmm.
sign they're in. So, it changes almost every other year. But yes, you're right. Like with this one, it is such a big initiatory energy, like such like a moving forward in some way. So, yeah, it's an interesting axis, because with Libra, we have like, and especially too, because the South Node represents a falling away. In Indian traditions, it's called Rahu and Ketu. It's
Hmm.
like the head and the tail of the dragon. So the tail of the dragon is associated with like where we're already satiated in our lives and where we don't need more. So it's actually like a falling away. Whereas the head of the dragon, it's always hungry, right? Like it's a mouth without a stomach. It's always taking in, taking in, taking. It's insatiable. So in some ways, this applies because it's like where we're taking in and what we're leaving behind, right? And so with these sets of eclipses, with the Libra axis especially, it's themes of like, okay, codependence, indecisiveness. Where am I not making decisions? Where am I people pleasing? Am I doing too much of that? Am I over compromising? Am I afraid of conflict? Is there something that I'm afraid to do? Right? How am I afraid of action? And then with the Aries North node, it's more about like assertiveness, fierceness, independence, courage, initiative drives, self-reliance. And it's this big like moment of being like, okay, where can I apply that? Right. And so we can look in the chart and we'll get into that later about what areas in life you're going to see this increase of assertiveness, of applying yourself, and this decrease of, codependent behaviors, overextending yourself, people pleasing. and things like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be as literal as that. Sometimes it is. Like I look around and I witness my friends' lives and I see these things play out. And I can see it so literally. But yeah, it's very interesting to witness.
And then we're also moving into a retrograde during these eclipses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just to break down the dates,
Yeah.
just so we have a grasp of what's happening is
Yeah.
March 25th, which is, for us tonight. We wanted to really make sure we bake in the energy of the eclipse in this episode. So you're getting that. Normally not an auspicious time to do things, but we're just rolling with it.
We're
So
rolling
March
with it.
25th.
We're
Yeah,
empowering
oh sorry, yeah,
ourselves.
exactly. It's fine. March 25th is the Libra eclipse, right at midnight PST. So that would be for where I am, it's in the morning, but for you guys, it's at midnight.
Hmm.
Oh wait, Monday, March 25th. Sorry. Um, oh no, that's right.
Yes, so it's technically Sunday
Yeah,
night.
no, that is
Sunday
right.
night, Monday
Okay.
morning.
Where am I? Okay. And then, just if that wasn't enough energy for us, we have April 1st, the Mercury retrograde starting. And so Mercury rules communication, technology, things like the post office and, your ride to work. And when it's going retrograde, it's usually like a challenge to those communication systems, like a wire cross of some kind. So it's nothing to fear. It goes retrograde every 3 months. So it's not a big deal. We're pretty used to it. Things go wrong all the time. It's not a big deal. But it is a little bit of a big deal because it's during an eclipse season with Mars and Saturn conjunction on April 10th. So
This
on
could
April 8th,
heighten like cross communication. So to
yeah,
like, yeah.
big time. So on April 8th, it's this total solar eclipse in Aries. And this one is special because it's a total eclipse, right? So I don't think we'll see it in Canada or London, but
In
a lot of
Toronto,
the
actually.
US,
If
in
anyone's
Toronto,
listening in
yes.
Toronto, they'll be able to see it
Yeah.
in Ontario.
Yeah, exactly. So they're pretty rare. And so it will go across the US and parts of Canada, like eastern parts. Um, and that's the one in Aries. So that's like another point. But then we have baked in this like this malefic conjunction between Mars and Saturn on April 10th.
Okay,
And
can you
this,
break down malefic conjunction
yes.
real quick?
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm going, I will
For myself
absolutely.
and probably a lot of people
Yeah.
listening.
Oh, absolutely. So because okay, in astrology, there's benefics and malefics. There's Venus and Jupiter, they're the benefics of the chart. They do good, right?
Mm.
They bring blessings, they bring art, they bring beauty. But the malefics, Mars and Saturn, they're like associated with doing harm, let's say,
Little
just to
havoc,
give
maybe.
a little havoc. Yeah,
Little
havoc. Let's
havoc.
say that. Okay. Yeah, maybe this is where you're good because we need your positivity. But yeah, so it happens. It's not very rare, but it happens every 2 years. But just to give you an instance of the last two times it happened, it happened in 2020, March 2020, March 31st, 2020, just to,
We all
give you
remember that. Yeah.
we all remember that. So we were all getting used to the new life that we were adjusting to
Mhm.
in lockdown. That was the word,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and then the last one was early April 2022. And so you can like even look back
Mm.
into your life of like what kind of aggravations were happening, like what challenges were you encountering? For me, I know that I literally had COVID during the time. Like I looked at my photos and I like when I was preparing for this podcast and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it's like yeah, so just to give you like the archetype, so Mars is the god of war, right? Ruled by Aries. And he represents ambition, action, drive. And then Saturn is more the father of structure. It represents control,
Mm.
restrictions, and discipline. And so when the two come together, it can create like a tense atmosphere because Mars wants to move forward and make progress, and Saturn wants to like put limitations and obstacles. And so you can feel like you're trying to move forward, but you're having obstacles imposed by external
Mhm.
factors that are beyond your control, right? So yeah, it's a lot of this like energy of trying to move forward, but like just being a little bit blocked. And because we have a Mercury retrograde here as well, it's just like double that energy. So we'll get into it when we go into the survival aspects and like the activities that are actually good for this time because, it's not conducive to forward movement. Like it might be because eclipses are associated with big beginnings as well. So it can be like
Mhm.
something is starting for you, but it's like a challenging thing. It's not like necessarily easy. It's going to require a part of you that is ready to stand up and move and do it, right? So
Yeah.
it's challenging.
So you need to move forward from a strong foundation if you are
Exactly.
going to, like a really strong foundation and clear direction, probably because you are going to overcome or like have to overcome obstacles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And something that came to me this today when I was preparing for this, and then I just kind of channeled when I was in the shower, it says it's basically like maybe things aren't clear right now, and maybe that's okay. Like if there's confusion, maybe I lack clarity, maybe that's okay.
Mm.
This is a idea of being able to hold the space in between, right? The eclipses, like when we're between eclipses, they're called eclipse tunnels, right? And so if you're feeling blocked or confused right now, or like that, there's this kind of drama unfolding. Maybe it's just supposed to be that way right now. Maybe it doesn't need to be fixed. And actually, what's really nice is that we do have clarity coming for us. On April
Mm.
20th, we have this beautiful Jupiter and Uranus conjunction that's like sudden ideas, sudden breakthroughs, sudden good blessings. And so I don't think that this beginning of the month is going to be where we get our clarity. It's
Mm.
where we're going to see where the problems are. It's where things are like, what's not working here?
Yeah.
What
It's a
needs to
little
be rebuilt?
muddy,
Yeah, exactly.
which makes sense. It's spring. We have that
Yeah.
rain, that mud, that changing, that thing's fighting and ready to bloom, but then
Mhm.
there might be a sudden frost. Or maybe there's too much rain
Exactly.
and now the water's super muddy. So it
No,
does make
totally.
sense that, like, even with the elementals, that is kind of the season of stickiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you really think about it in that metaphor, it's like we don't get the beautiful bloom of real springtime when it feels like spring and everything's like warm and nice. We don't really get that until like end of April, May, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of poetic in that way. It's crazy how sometimes it just is like poetic. Do you have I wonder if you have any advice about like, you know, because I can get really stuck in
Hmm.
the heaviness of things. And I look at this and I feel overwhelmed. So what would you recommend like for this energy where someone might be feeling frustrated
Yeah.
or like I'm actually asking for myself because
Yeah.
I can feel this already. But like if you're feeling like, okay, I have a few options, I'm going to move forward with one, but it's not working. Like what, or you're running into obstacles. What would you say would be like good practice throughout that?
I just had a bunch of things come to mind. The
Mm,
first one I'm actually going to share, though, is because if you're stuck internally, it's time to get outside, to look outside. We spend 95% of our day on autopilot. I think it's after the age of 32. Not
mhm.
100% sure on the age, but let's say early 30s, you're on autopilot. And even in it's very close to that 90% mark. And so you're working with old patterns, old ways of being. Only 5% of your day are you actually looking out at the world around you where you can find inspiration. So if I think you were stuck or you're feeling stuck, and again, you're already inside within the patterns you already know, get outside, take a walk.
Mm,
It's spring, but when you walk, receive. So instead of looking out at stuff, so from the me center, see if you can start to receive. Because you're looking at the world around you, you can receive new inspiration, receive new information, and then being able to come back home applying that to your idea, your dream, your problem. If you're able to receive, you then start working with the elementals. You're working with life instead of saying, this is my idea, this is how I want it to go. And if you're hitting obstacles in this time, or you're having cross communications in the Mercury retrograde, again, take yourself from out of the center of like, I'm going to do this, and say, look around and say, what's supporting me to do this? Should I maybe shift a little bit? Is there energy or information that's available to help me? Because there is. And so if it is something you really want to move forward with and you're feeling stuck, take a walk and receive, and like get into that 5% of being in your life. Maybe extend it to 10 for that day and really let yourself receive. That's the first thing that came to me. Shaking is also, I love somatic shaking. It's so powerful because you can do it anytime, anywhere. Every single animal in nature knows this. Our nervous system knows it. Actually, when we get into intense states of shock, we do then shake. But it's beautiful to use a shake and not have to get to that intense state. Like, we can shake ourselves. And again, it's a little different than dancing. It doesn't look a certain way at all. It really starts internal within like your bones. Like really, I start with my feet and really allow like my legs to shake and vibrate and move up into my hips. And then your hands and wrists start naturally shaking while breathing. But again, you can put on a song and just like shake and release that excess energy.
I love that.
Yeah,
like
I think
a
it's really
duck out
good
of
one.
water kind of
Yes,
thing?
exactly.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's really, I can't see on the video, but yeah, it's like, it's not a dance, because I think sometimes dancing is beautiful medicine in its own, but it's like, yeah, if you can think of trying to make like every part of fascia in your body move, vibrate just subtly, and just kind of like help release that holding too. Because often, we get stuck when we're trying to control and dictate how something's going to be. And sometimes it is from a place of like having this really beautiful vision and dream and wanting to make it work. But the harder we hold and control onto it, it's like that will get stuck. And then if the energies around us are fighting already and you're feeling that tension, to like release that. Open up your body, release the tension, go out in the world, be open.
I love that. That's really beautiful. I think too, something that's probably coming up for a lot of people is when to quit. Like when to quit, like when to stop going. That's what came up in session with me, with a client earlier, is like, when do you stop? Like, when do you know something's not working because it's not supposed to work out? Or when do you stop because or just recognizing the difference of like, pushing forward. Like, does this require just maybe a little bit more effort on my part? Like, am I actually able to push through this? Or is this just like a block, a no entry, like do not go here any further? Like how do you discern the difference? Is that like a somatic thing? Is that in your body as well?
That's a really powerful question. I would say there's a few layers to that. Again, it's like checking with your body, even the verbiage, like I heard you say pushing, we actually should never have to be pushing ever. You can be working towards something, dreaming, co-creating, but if you're having to push an obstacle, it does mean that you're like, oh, I actually need to step back and figure out how actually just to walk around it or move through it or alchemize it. Maybe I can use magic and turn that rock into water and just flow through it. But to have, I think, checking in both within your body and your intuition. So that idea that like your intuition whispers, fears scream, and sometimes it's a fear of success that blocks us from stuff. So if it's a loud voice telling you to stop, that's not the voice I'd listen to. If there is a gentle whisper that's saying not right now, maybe give that a little bit of space and give that a little bit of airtime to those quieter voices. But again, it's comes back as well to like, if it is in alignment for your soul's journey here, for your dharma, if it's something that's really important, it will happen. it will happen. And trusting, there is also a trust of timing. So knowing that within, like, I know that within every cell of my body, like, I am guided on the path that is for my highest good and the highest good for all. I know that. And so I don't need to force situations. If something's going to happen, it will, I know it will. And it's like listening to that intuitive voice, learning how to like alchemize instead of pushing things. So if I'm like, okay, I'm going to step back and like maybe work some magic on this situation instead of trying to shove it out of the way or like move through a rock, and then that still doesn't work, I'm like, okay, maybe it's not right now. Yeah, so it's a very like, I think that as well too, it's a very personal discovery for people. And like, I have dreams and projects of mine that I really know are not right now, and I've like held on to them. And I'm so excited for the time I get to do them. And it's taken me a long time to trust that also, though. Like, I know there's one project I know is going to happen, but my intuition has told me it's just not right now.
Yeah.
I started trying to do it, and things weren't flowing in the right way, and I wasn't pushing it. And I was like working with the world around me, and I was like, it's not. And I really sat down with that and I said, it's not now. I know it's happening, but it's not now. And that's given me a lot of trust in that as well too. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah. It's hard to put that in a pinpoint, but yeah, it's not no, just maybe not right now. Because if it is for you and those certain projects that we have and dreams that we have that we know are like really light our soul up, that can happen. It's just maybe not right now.
Yeah, I love that. And like, just a simple recognition of, is there energy there? Is there a little bit of momentum, right? Are there a small few signs beckoning you forward? Like, is there a little bit of support? Is there something like, is there this sense of something needs to be done right now? Like today.
And ask for signs. You can also ask for signs. Like, should I proceed with this? Like, give me a sign, send help my way. Send, maybe someone comes up to you that wants to co-collaborate or inspire you, or it can be really like, I want to see a feather, I want to see a penny. Like, it can be a very specific sign. The specific ones are more challenging. I do know that for the beyond, but absolutely they can come bring those through. But having like, if I'm meant to do this, like I've asked for like help, like bring help into my life, and it can show up in many ways. So you can absolutely also ask for signs.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I there is one caveat I will say in all this, just because I am, I've been in some situations in terms of even just my work in my career where I'm halfway through a mural and it sucks. Like, it is just, it's brutal, like sometimes things just go wrong. Like, for instance, I just had to paint in the middle of winter in January. And that was really, you saw my little snow hat, right? Like, I was literally painting in the snow. I had two heaters, but I was freezing. But I pushed through, and it was a pushing energy, but sometimes these moments require us, the higher part of us, right? So I could have walked off and said, feels like I'm pushing, like I can't, but then I would have fired from the job, like everything would have been bad. But it's like, I knew that I'm resilient, right? This is increasing my resiliency. And now that I've done this a few times, I've done challenging murals, I have remembrance of that resiliency, right? So I'm remembering that, I painted a mural in October. I'm pretty sure I had COVID during the mural, and I painted it outside in the cold. January, I painted a mural in the cold. Like, I have I can do this, but you can throw anything at me now, and I know that I'm strong enough to handle it, So it's like, is it calling for a better part of you, or is it just simply not working at all? Because you can see that difference as well.
No, I really appreciate it. It's important, I think, for me to clarify the pushing then, because physical discomfort, it's going to be hard. Sometimes like doing our work, doing our dreams, our jobs, it's gonna suck sometimes physically, you know,
Yeah.
like I am all about a new paradigm of work, this shifting of understanding patterns and cycles, especially for females, how we work in the
Mhm.
world and how we show up in our flow. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean it's going to be easy all the time. Doesn't mean it's going
No,
to be
totally.
physically comfortable all the time. So yeah, the
No.
pushing, it's not a physical pushing, but it's more
Mhm.
of like pushing energy. Like if you're
Right.
clearly seeing
Forcing.
constantly blocks, energetic blocks coming up,
Right. If you're getting
that's what I
no's.
meant. Yeah, but
Yeah.
like physically, like yeah, sometimes you're going to have to work hard and it's going to be
Right.
cold and uncomfortable and we're going to be sick and yeah, there's like, and it's so important for us to do that. Like you just spoke on it because we do find your resiliency. If you're just going to step back when like the first discomfort happens, like that's not the universe telling you no, you know, that's you just wanting to be comfortable. Which
Exactly.
again is like,
Yeah.
that's natural, that's human nature. But if we all just want to like sit comfortably by a river every day, probably won't
Totally.
accomplish much. Again, that's
Yeah.
okay if it's your goal, you know, and
Oh, totally.
if there's something
Y-
you want to do, like it will require physical effort.
Yeah, it's going to require larger
Yeah.
parts of you. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for
Um,
bringing that up because yeah, it's
of course,
important. The
yeah.
pushing isn't like it's an
Yes.
energetic. If you're
Right,
like,
totally.
you know, like constantly like things are very obviously telling you
Hmm.
no and you're
Right,
still trying to
right.
go forward with it.
Yeah.
Um yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's
Mhm.
good. I'm realizing right now that the mural I'm referring to in October when I had COVID was an eclipse. It was the eclipses
Of
in
course.
October and November, and I just remember being like, this is terrible. This is a terrible time to do this."
Yeah.
But I had no choice. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah,
And then
it's
again,
just
that
so
comes to that
interesting.
empowerment, right? Like we can have that knowledge, like, okay, this isn't the
Exactly.
best time, but this is the time I've been given. And I
Exactly.
operate right now in a society where sometimes you do have to show up and do things. You're
Hmm.
required and made a commitment to do it, which is really
Yeah,
important to honor our commitments. So it's like
exactly.
have that information and move forward with it, with the knowledge.
Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think this is a really good time to transition into the step-by-step
Yes.
guide to the survival guide because
Yes.
yeah, I think it's just these times are hard to navigate and yeah, we want to give you the tools basically to be able to survive and thrive during this season, but don't also expect thriving. Just try and I put that in there to sell it, but don't worry about that. Just focus on surviving. And if you can do that, then we're good.
Yeah.
Okay? So
I'll offer survive and maybe flow, like a
there we
survive and
go.
flow. Yeah.
There we
Doesn't
go.
sound as good as survive and thrive,
And
but survive
yeah,
and flow. Like just flow with it. We
there
can
we
just
go.
lazy river our way out of this season.
Yeah. That's a good it's a good mode of transport for that actually.
Yes.
Okay, so step number one is do not fear eclipses. Even though I just said all of that what I said, just remember that you are just as powerful, right?
Mhm.
Like you are a free person who has the ability to make decisions. And also hiding in your house is not a way to because you're afraid of something. This I'm speaking to myself right now. Is not A, it's not healthy, and B, it's like these eclipses, they have karmic pull anyways. So it's like these events that are transpiring, it's not really something you have to be out to receive. It's not like you're going to walk out and a piano falls on your head, right? It's not like that. It's like these things, these are tides pulling us in certain directions. And
Mhm.
so we don't have really control over that part, but we do have control over like our relationship with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've already touched on that a bunch today, where yeah, like
Hmm.
it's just having that information and then that's okay. And then we can release that fear. Like knowledge helps us release fear. So we have that knowledge, we're aware it's going to happen. And even if I tried to hide from it, I'm still going to go out in the world and interact with everyone else that was affected by this karmically and energetically. You know, so
Hmm.
it's really, it's almost just like saying, like, okay, great, it's here. I have this information, and how can I best move forward with the power of this knowledge now?
Totally.
Mm.
Exactly.
Like that.
Love
Step
that.
one, do not fear
Step one.
eclipses.
Exactly. All right. And step two would be to create space. Just do less. This is a great time to just create space in your life and just not overwhelm
Mm.
yourself. If you know things are going to get a little wiry, crossy, then maybe it's not a good time to take on 7 to 12 projects at once. Maybe it's time to just focus on one. Wow, I said that. It was like I was talking to myself again. God damn it. Um, and I would say like a lot of this space creating, it comes down to actually what you say yes to, right? Like what we take on. And so what I would say with that is like when you have a decision to make in terms of like, am I going to take this next thing on? Am I going to hang out with this person? Is this something I want to commit to? Is it like an expansion in your body where you feel excited? Or is it a contraction? Is it a Even if it's a it's probably a no for right now,
Yeah.
right? Unless you're like out of your seat, excited to do it, it's don't just put it off for just a couple weeks,
I
you
love that.
know?
Out of your seat, excited. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like there might be some drama surrounding you, and it's just like just don't get involved in it. Just
Mm.
create space, boundaries, and energetic boundaries and psychic boundaries. Just this is a time to really just let life move through you and make space for whatever happens.
I love that. Yeah, the boundary work. And then I feel like every day is useful
Yeah.
work. If it's, and not a jump out of your seat. Yes, it is a
Yeah.
no. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And there's so much power in our no. We're at a time again, we're stepping into this Aquarian age of speeding up of many things. And so having no is going to leave you time and space for the yes and for what really
Exactly.
matters to you, to your journey. Um, yeah, I think that good boundary work and knowing your own expansion. Like there's a somatic tool I really love for starting to feel yourself in space. And so I recommend people you start in your own home because it's your home, it's your energy, in a room without anyone else though. So if you have a partner, if you have a roommate, maybe you just get the bedroom for a few minutes or the living room, or you're home alone. It is important to have your own space when you start practicing this. But really, you begin by just like closing your eyes, tuning inwards, starting to sense your own physical body.
Mm.
Maybe then bringing that awareness like an inch surrounding you. So an inch in front of you, an inch behind you, an inch to the sides of you, like starting to be like, oh, hey, what does that energy field feel like? Maybe you can bring it a foot. Can you bring it 5 feet? And then eventually seeing what it would feel like if you let your energy fill up your room and really, really expand. So how does that feel to be expansive in a safe space? And then you bring it back to yourself and expand. And so this practice, again, in a safe space in your home, you recognize when your energy is now like expanded and excited and wanting to be present and big. And so someone asks you a question, an invitation, an offering, you can already know energetically like what it feels like when you're expanded. Like, did your body just like jump out and was like, yeah, like, did your energy jump out of its seat? And you really can feel that. Or did energetically parts of yourself start to protect yourself and close? And do you feel a little smaller now? And it could be a beautiful invitation. But does your body feel a little smaller? Like, that's a no. And again, for right now. So it's like, okay, maybe that's a no for me. So yeah, I think the practice of knowing what your energy feels like when it's expanding and excited, and what it feels like when it's like, oh no, we're needing to protect ourselves here and put up boundaries, is a really beautiful way to start to like tune in. And you can immediately, you don't even have to think about an invitation. You can actually just feel it. You're like, do I want it? Because again, if your energy is expanding to meet this person and play with their energy, it's like, yeah, let's do this. Let's create this. Let's do that thing. But if it's like drawing and it's like, no, this isn't right for me right now.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. and especially too with this like Libra South Node eclipse, it is this notion of where am I saying yes just to make the other person happy? Or, or where am I people pleasing? Is it because I'm taking on too much? Right. And so that just ties into all of this so well. Yeah, that's great. Should we move on to the next one?
Yes. So step
Okay.
two, well, step one, do not fear eclipses. Step two, create space. And step three
Is use the retrograde energy for reactivities, meaning review, reassess, reflect, reorganize, reconnect, relax, recharge. Retrogrades, right? It can be immensely helpful in these ways. The energy supports looking back. It's actually supportive of that energy. That's why that's why there's this like, cliche of the X that comes back during Mercury retrograde, is because the energy of the past is supported. So if you actually take this time to look back, at the last 3 months of what you've built, what you've been working on, okay, where does it need to be tidied up? What things need to be put into place? Oh, maybe I didn't, actually clean that room. That room needs to be cleaned. That room needs to be reorganized. And also, like, if you haven't seen someone in a long time, it's a really good time to be that like retrograde activity in someone else's life, right? Like, be that friend that reaches out.
like a reconnect. Yeah.
Exactly, reconnect. And also, yeah, I like the word relax and recharge, because it's not so much about move forward, move forward, move forward. It's a lot of like, okay, let's review the systems in my life where I'm being supported and how am I taking care of myself, you know? So I think that's just a really good way to have like be more supported during this time, is not to try and make forward fast movements, but focus more on review. And if you have to, if you have to like sign a contract, if you're buying a house, if like these things happen, it's life, right? But just make sure you read the fine print of everything. Just make sure that you really look through all the details of what you're getting in through, and don't skip over anything, because this is a time when you're not going to see those details as well, you know? So yeah, that's the retrograde lessons.
I love that. And easy to remember. I like
Mm-hmm.
retrograde. The
Yeah, exactly.
retrograde. We're gonna rebrand it so everyone can remember their activities. It is now
Exactly.
retrograde. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
love that.
exactly. Yeah, I have heard that it's apparently easier on people who are born during Mercury retrograde because they're used to the energy, but I don't know if that's true. So,
People, let us know.
yeah, let
Reach
us
out to us and
know.
let us know. Anyone born during
Yeah,
a retrograde.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It took me a while to
Um,
learn to work with them also. And again,
yeah, and
it's
they
just
still somehow always something always pisses me off, but it's just the energy, you know.
yeah.
And if you understand that it's there, it's like when it happens, you're like, oh, that's fine. I was kind of
Yes.
expecting that, you know?
Yeah. For myself,
Yeah,
I've learned to like take a pause before sending messages.
exactly.
If there's something where I was like, do I need to say this right now, this way? Like, maybe let's just take a minute on important topics, conversations, especially if I'm activated or triggered. Like, nope, I'm not sending it. Like, take a moment
Hmm.
and collect my words, because often, yeah, those were the times where I find I was um, my words got most crossed and challenged, which makes sense. It's during the
Yeah,
retrogrades. Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I love that. Okay, step 4. Change is good. Embrace it.
Yes.
And so this is how to get every last drop out of these eclipses, right? Like how to milk it for the juice of it, right? And so if you can understand where this is happening for you, you can kind of lean into it a little bit more, right? Like if you
Mm,
know that you're having a north node increase, then you can just kind of push that along, or just, not push is probably the bad word, but just like show up for that, right?
flow with it.
Exactly. Flow with it. And so, do you think we have time for just a quick forecast for the signs?
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
Let's do it. We have all the
Um,
time.
okay, amazing. So I just want to do a quick forecast for the rising signs in pairs. So we can do pairs because they share, houses, but they're just opposite. So the North Node always corresponds right with the increase, the potential or the start of. And the South Node eclipses are associated with things that are falling away, concepts in your life that you might be saying goodbye to. And sometimes they don't have to be as literal as hello, goodbye. It doesn't have to be like that. Sometimes it's a little bit of hello over here. Sometimes it's you're letting go of that one thing and then you're actually doing more of that. Like it's a mixture, right? And so it is actually poignant for each rising sign for both houses because they're both being activated, right? And so for Aries and Libra axis, we'll start with the first and seventh houses because those are what they represent, right? So this first and seventh house axis has to do with self and other, which is basically the rebalancing act between yourself, your identity, and other people and your relationships with other people. And so there might be major developments in your concepts of self-identity and also the way in which you relate to other people. Big beginnings and endings in terms of relationships, business partners, and perhaps the birth of new identity concepts. It can also be like literal sometimes. I've had it where in the first and seventh house axis eclipse, you actually lose people that are those signs. So it can be like, I lost a Libra, not like they died, but like we just stopped talking during that time. Or actually, I met my boyfriend and he's an Aries. It's like that kind of thing can happen during this time. Taurus and Scorpio rising, and this is applies to you
Yes,
as
Scorpio
a Scorpio
rising.
rising, of course. So this is a 12th and 6th house axis. This one is a bit more quieter because it has to do with the 12th house, which is unseen, right? In the chart, it's not seen. It's a subconscious. So it's a lot more internal. Sometimes it's not as literal as like a big bang of, event or crescendo. But basically, it's a rebalancing of health, taking care of yourself, also having to do with solitude, retreat, the subconscious. And so you could be right now reviewing your routines, your work, your habits. With this access, I would recommend just watching out for burnout of any kind. Just again, that principle of creating space and not taking on too much. Does that resonate for you at all? I'm curious.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting that I have. Um, I was looking just last week actually at my next month feeling, and I was like, you know what? There's actually a few too many offerings, and I pulled two back. And I was really proud of
Yeah.
myself because I was like, you
Oh,
know
good
what?
for
It's
you.
still we're still in the early stages of spring, that germination of the seed. What do
Yeah,
you call it?
germination. Yeah, totally.
Germination. Like we're not the bloom yet. So
Totally.
that's really, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, and I made the right
Yeah.
choice there on kind of
Yeah,
just
you had the
pulling
right
back two of
intuition.
them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like we do have that bloom coming. It
Yes.
it does get easier, which is a nice thing about astrology is you know when it ends. So I like you can see, May, June, July, beautiful months. Nice time,
Nice time.
It's a nice time. Don't worry about this one right now. I'm just like, yeah. Anyways, okay. So we'll move on to Gemini and Sagittarius rising, and I can speak to this as a Gemini rising. So that's the 11th house and the 5th house axis. So it's a rebalancing of your network, social groups, and communities at large. This can also represent friends, groups of friends, new networks of friends that you might be saying hello or goodbye to. It's also the beginning or ending of some creative practices. It could be like a new body of creative work that you're releasing to the world. Or it could be creative practices that you're saying goodbye to, that you're no longer doing. Or perhaps they're taking root, right? Depends if you're a Gemini or Sagittarius Sag or Gemini rising. But just like the balance of the creative practices and your network, basically. And so for an example, like I knew that I can lean in to this network energy because I'm having a North Node eclipse in my Aries house, right, which is my 11th house. So I'm taking on all the networking opportunities. I'm going to the events. I'm putting myself out there. I'm leaning into the
Mhm.
energy, right? So you can milk it for it,
Yeah.
right?
Work with
Um,
it.
yeah, exactly. And so for Cancer Capricorn rising, this is the 10th and fourth house axis. This is career and home. It's quite literal, doesn't get much deeper than that. It's just there's changes happening in those two areas. So it's the start and endings of, changes in residence, changes in jobs. What started last October that could be like hitting its peak right
Mm.
now. So, buying a home, moving, those sorts of things, quite literal,
Yeah.
pretty ABC in that way. It's nice.
I love that sometimes astrology can be that way, where it's
Just
just like, this
super,
is this.
super easy.
Yeah.
That's that. Yeah, exactly. Leo and Aquarius rising. This is the ninth and third house axis. So concepts of like long distance travel, places at far distances from us. You could be going on a trip or wanting to travel or things like that. Higher learning, publishing. You could be like releasing a body of work in terms of like written something, publishing a book, communication, what's being released or published. May also have something to do with siblings or people that feel like siblings as well. Something could be happening with them. And the last one is the Virgo and Pisces rising. It's the eighth and second house axis. Right now in Canada, it's tax time. And it's really important for you guys to get your taxes right this year because the eighth house
It's
is
true.
taxes. Yeah. Yeah. It rules taxes, but it also rules like just contracts, right?
Hmm.
So soul contracts, karmic contracts, legal agreements with other people, like marriage, divorce, debts, loans, like literal contracts, right? So there's something there that's beginning or ending around that. And then also this has to do with personal finance because the second house is personal finance and assets. So the abundance or increase of money, income, or also the opposite, like are you saying goodbye to outdated streams of income, basically?
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's just like an overall, zoomed out look at the eclipses. But we go more into them in our seasonal synergy events
Yes.
and when they're happening.
We have a
Just a
spring one
tease.
coming up, little
Yeah, this is a
teaser.
little
Yeah.
tease for the next one. So if you're interested to hear more stuff like that and how to work with
Mhm.
them specifically, that's when we get more into it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we'll break it down by rising sign as we just did. And then you get exercises to help support you
Yeah,
once we have this
exactly.
knowledge. And then you're like, okay, great. Now what do I do with this? How can I be supported?
Exactly.
So yeah, but we'll have a spring one upcoming.
Yes. Which the exercises is important because this is the step 5 that I want you to fully go on. But the last, survival tip is step 5, breathe. You
So
go off.
essential, so essential to life. I love breath work though, because we are all experts or we'd be dead. We know how
Mm,
to breathe. We're just not doing
well
it
said.
consciously. Right. So it's really one of my favorite things to do, and such a simple one that you can do anywhere, is a psychological sigh. This is
Mm.
taking 2 sips of air in through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. So it sounds like
Mm.
you can sigh it out, you can gently exhale it out. And again, you can do this at your office, at your desk, at your home. You can do this driving. You can take a psychological exhale anywhere. The science behind it is taking a deeper breath in. So normally when we're breathing unconsciously through our chest, when we're stressed, we're not actually receiving enough oxygen. So breath work has so many physiological benefits because on our day to day, we are not breathing fully how we should be, how our bodies want us to be receiving this essential oxygen for life, for nutrients, for our cells, for our blood. And so taking that 2-part inhale lets you receive more oxygen. Also helps calm the nervous system. The audible sigh starts to work with your vagus, starts to calm the nervous system, making a little bit of sounding, a little bit of toning in your throat. Yeah, I say psychological exhale anytime, anywhere it's needed. It's such a powerful tool. You can do a couple of them. There's no limit. If you're like, I need to sigh for 5 minutes, sigh for 5 minutes. You just, there's power in just taking one, but that's often the tool I give people because it's a simple one and they can remember it because you're already breathing. And usually when you are stressed or you are feeling stuck, you feel it in your chest, or people get headaches. And so you can think like, oh, my chest is tight. Oh, I need oxygen. Maybe I'll take that 2-part inhale
right
through the nose, sigh it out through the mouth. Yeah. And I also I'm doing an in-person. I haven't done an in-person breath work for a little bit. So I'll be doing an in-person breath work session on the 7th. Again,
I wish I was there.
Yeah.
That would be so amazing.
We'll have things in Europe soon.
Yes. Good timing.
Yes. But yeah, really powerful that I sat with. That was one of the events where I was like, should I, shouldn't I? I'm feeling a little stretched from Africa, but it's needed. It's really needed.
It's so necessary.
So, coming together, and it's a 2-hour journey. There's an optional microdose. We have Enchanted Tea is sponsoring us. I love their microdose teas. Are so beautiful and gentle. And having that microdose just helps you relax into it a little bit more. It also helps create those new neural pathways. So you've done your breath work and now we're repatterning. So we have new information, we're new ways of being, and the mushrooms really help with those new neural pathways and keeping them and maintaining these new practices. So yeah, I'll have an in-person event in Vancouver for everyone to come breathe, receive new oxygen, and also like let go and release and like kind of like come back to the body and let go again of like energy that isn't theirs. So as we shared earlier, in these seasons, everyone we interact with is affected by it. Even if we hide in our house, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to go out into the world eventually. My friends, my family, my community have been affected by this eclipse portal, by what's happening. So it's important to be able to like come to these rooms and again, release what isn't ours.
I love that too, because just poetically, I think of the North Node and South Node as the inhale and the exhale, right? Like that is so perfect. And I love the idea too of the exhale, because that's the space that you're creating, right? That's like what we're talking about with all of these practices, is ultimately creating space. And yeah, I love
and releasing a little control too, right? Like that exhale,
holding on and letting go,
a surrender, like and trust. Like when you exhale, you do trust, your body's going to breathe again. So reminds body like there's safety in letting go. I can trust letting go. I can trust surrendering, because I will receive again. I will inhale again. Don't have to think about it. So it's safe. It reminds us it's safe to surrender when we're able to get to those like really deep, beautiful exhales.
That's beautiful. That's perfect. Like, I think that's the last thing that needs to be said. It's like the letting go, is a natural process, and that it's a safe process. Yeah. And when one door closes, it's like cliche to say, but the next one opens, and that's what these eclipses are for. These portals of time are for, right? Literal doors.
Yeah. So to summarize our 5 steps, we have step 1, do not fear eclipses. Step 2, create space. Step 3, use the retrograde for reactivities. Step 4, change is good, embrace it. Step through that new door. And step 5, breathe. Please breathe. It's so simple, so much easier. It is at its core. And again, I often share in workshops and classes for those listening, like take what resonated with you, right? Like allowing these things to just land in you in their simplicity, and you'll work with and remember what you need right now, because it can be that simple. It doesn't have to be, the good student that records everything and I can just give it back the exact same. It's like, no, what do I receive and how do I make it mine? And so whatever
Totally.
lands of these tools, run with that. Use that. That's what you need right now.
Yes. Amen. Amen. And one of the last things I just want to say is, yeah, knowing that astrology transits, they're called transits because they're transitory, right? Like they have a beginning and an end. So even if it feels like you're in the thick of it, it has an ending. There's you
Mhm.
can you know when something's gonna it's gonna reach its point, right? So just keep holding on, keep breathing, and you're gonna make it through. You're gonna come out on the other side of this. So yeah.
Yes, thank you
And
so much. I want to
of
add that
course.
people too, like I have my in-person event, but you're also taking clients on now and doing
Yes, I
readings
just
as well,
launched
right?
my
Yeah.
practice. Yeah, my I do two offerings. I have a coaching practice that taps more into my creative career as an artist and designer for the last decade. Just specializing in the creative process where we bring your ideas to life, basically. If you've had something in your heart that you really want to make manifest, a project, a piece of work, some writing, art, what is it? I want to be basically that like creative doula for you, like how to bring it out of you,
Mm.
how to get rid of the self-doubt, how to, take away the blocks that are stopping you. And then my astrology is offerings are more integrative astrology, more with coaching as well. So I don't really like the idea of a consultation where I just tell you about yourself. I want it to be a dialogue where we're creating answers as well. Because, a lot of astrology is like, okay, great. What do I do with this? Like, awesome. Thanks for this. Like, awesome. Thanks. It's like, okay, how do we actually make the most of this?
Yeah.
How do we make the juice of it? And how do we prepare for these moments of luck, of abundance? Like, if we know that a certain like mountain is coming, then like, how can we prepare for this? So that's my two offerings. And yeah, I'm taking clients now.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'll link your website and Instagram in the show notes so people can find you and those beautiful offerings. Yeah, I feel very blessed to call you a friend and have your knowledge and wisdom, access to it. Because yeah, I think you have such a unique way of, again, reading, interpreting, and then actually making it applicable and useful.
Thank you. I feel the
Yeah.
same way about you as a friend, so very
Thank
lucky.
you. Thank you so much
Of
for, yeah,
course, thank
sharing your
you.
wisdom today. And yes, everyone stay tuned for the next spring date for seasonal synergy.
Yes, yes.
Yes, stay in flow, stay in the lazy river, friends.
Bye.
Bye.